Hey there guys, welcome to Hursty Games and welcome to something that's actually quite different on this channel, but it's something that's very close to my heart, as I'm sure a lot of you who are here on the channel before will know, and potentially some new people that won't, but we're going to get into something that's very different today. It's all based around QPR, past, present, future, so that if that's not your thing, apologies. I know this is, like I said, quite different to the normal thing I would do, but if you are a QPR fan, then this is a good chance for people to maybe get involved, just have a chat. I'm not too negative about stuff. I try and be quite optimistic about things. I try and look at things quite positively. So hopefully that's kind of your thing. I'm not going to be overly positive. If it's something I feel needs to be talked about negatively, then I will talk about it negatively. I'm under no disillusion. But if you're coming here expecting a sort of bash on Queen's Park Rangers or decisions and stuff, then this isn't the place for you. But if you're up for a genuine discussion, willing to hear someone's opinion, someone's thoughts about things that are going on, things they would like to see, then stick around, because hopefully this will be the kind of thing you actually want to see and you want to listen to. So again, apologies to people that aren't going to find this entertaining or their thing to watch, but welcome to those who do. So without further ado, we're actually going to get on with it, and we're going to start talking about our first topic, which is Ian Holloway and his departure from the club. Okay, so Ian Holloway obviously has left recently within the last week or so, sort of 2 weeks maybe, Queen's Park Rangers, and it was a kind of interesting term, you know. It was yeah, it was interesting. I mean, you can see on the screen I've got his sort of managerial history, so all of the teams he's managed, the success he's had at those clubs. Obviously it shows the amount of games he was managing for, the wins, draws, losses, and the win percentage. Now, we're going to concentrate more on his recent term, but looking at his previous term, 252 games he manages for, 100 wins, 81 losses. So you're looking at just around a 40% win ratio, which isn't atrocious. Obviously, you're kind of wanting, from a fan's point of view, you're probably wanting a bit nearer 50. I think 50 is a pretty good win ratio as a manager, because obviously then that's at least 50% of the games you're winning, obviously. But obviously taking draws and losses into account, you're looking at a fairly solid season or seasons with that kind of ratio. But this term, it wasn't as good a return, 32.5% win ratio. Obviously the team was a little bit different. The situation has been very, very different. I think the main thing, however, has been the clubs around us has been different. But the main issue I found with Holloway, which is something we'll get into, was just, I think there was a bit of confusion, not necessarily with himself, maybe a few things that came across as confusion or uncertainty, but there were definitely a few things that I think have led to his ratio being lower this time round, of his win percentage, and kind of the reason I think inevitably that has led to his exit of the club. So on the screen now, you'll see I've put basically what I think were the pros of him being here and the cons of him being here. Now we'll start off by talking about the pros, about why he was a good manager and why I think he fit with the club well. First of all, he was a very, very passionate manager. You could tell that with his interviews, with his play, like with himself, the way he controls himself, the way he brought himself to a game, things like that. You could tell he was passionate both about the club and about football non-stop. I don't think there's anything anyone can criticise Holloway for. I think he is a very passionate manager, player, etc. And I really respect him for that. I do connect with that really well as a fan, when your manager does seem passionate and does seem like he actually cares and like gives a damn about what's going on. And I genuinely felt that with Holloway. I could feel the passion, and you could see that at times through the players and through the games and stuff. You could feel that grit and feel that passion. Very committed guy. Obviously, quite a few clubs he's been there for years. Obviously, the first time he was with us for quite a few years. He had another year on his contract, which I think would have given him 3 seasons. So he would have been here for quite a while as well. So he is a very, very committed manager. And I think he's got a big, big commitment to Queen's Park Rangers. And I think a lot of people let that kind of go by. They don't think about that, and that he is very committed. Majority of the positives he's had this year is his development and his ability to develop. Well, I put youth players, but players in general, but especially the youth players. I think his focus on that has been very evident. I think the players he's been bringing through, the players that he's been giving chances and looking to develop, have often been youth players, but he's done really, really well with. I think one player that really does get undervalued, and maybe Holloway gets undervalued with his progression of this guy, is Darnell Furlong. I think he has come on leaps and bounds. When we first started playing him, I think it was his debut. I might be wrong. This could be a complete lie. I think his debut was against Liverpool when we were in the Premier League, and everyone was like, he's going to get absolutely battered. And to be fair, yeah, he had rings run around him in that game. Looking at that now, you compare that now, I don't think he would struggle against a lot of wingers in the Premier League, or definitely in the Championship, obviously, but I think he could hold his own in a solid team, and I genuinely think the progress he has gone on, even from just the start of this season, has been massive. He would be one of the first players on the team sheet for me, and I can only assume and really think Holloway has had a big impact on that. There have been more experienced players that could have been put in the team over him, but he has stuck with him. He has given him a great shot. Obviously, you can't ignore the likes of Paul Smith, Eze, Bright Asaya-Samuel, Ryan Manning, all these younger players that he's given the chance, he's given the boot and gone, you know what, I'm going to give them more chances. Manning a bit of an exception, he's only kind of played him in sort of odd roles every now and again. But the youth players and the work he's done with our youth team, bringing these youth guys through, I think has given us great hope for seasons to come. And I think he did a very, very good job with that, and I think he shouldn't be ignored of that fact. And the last thing, he knows the club, he knows QPR, obviously he's played with us, he's managed us before, he's managed us now. He does know the club, he understands the club, he understands the fans, all of this kind of stuff. And I think that is a big credit to him. He knows what he's doing in regards to, you know, Loftus Road, the surroundings, what it is. But there were some cons, and that does heavily, I think, affect a lot of people's opinions about him going, why he went, that he should have gone, all of this stuff. So we'll talk about the cons now. The first issue was his tinkering and his changing of the team and this kind of stuff. He did it too much. He really did. Honestly, as a fan, I feel like as fans we could sit, and majority of fans could sit and say who they would want as their starting 11. They'd say, you know, I know my keeper, defence, midfielder, I know who I'd want. I have my starting 11. It didn't feel like Holloway had his. Now, I know it's a different situation in that I'm not there every week watching them train, watching the people play, having to necessarily come up with game tactics and stuff, and it's a lot easier for me outside looking in to decide who I would and wouldn't start. But it genuinely felt like at times he had no idea who his team was, who his best players were, his formation, his position. It was ridiculous. I mean, I know we tried to start the season with like a three at the back mentality, and I liked the idea of it. I quite like the idea of going, we're going to have these solid defenders and we're going to push up, have our fullbacks really push up the pitch, have an attacking fullback, a defensive fullback. So, you know, we had like Bidwell, and then we were playing someone like Jolek, so Bidwell could drop back and make it a back four, and then you had Jolek could push up and make it a mid four. But it never seemed to play out like that. It never seemed that we actually had a starting 11 that we'd go there in every week. Even when we got to the point of Matt Smith became very much our main man and our main striker, was he playing with someone? Was he playing on his own? Was he playing with wingers? Was he playing with a midfield five? It never felt like we actually had the starting lineup at all, ever. And it changed too much, and that I think heavily influenced a lot of the results. And getting on to the next point, a big reason those changes were too often, it gave us terrible away form. We never had a set mentality or a set situation that we were going to go into away games with. I never felt like we went into an away game and I thought we've got this 100% in the bag, because 9 times out of 10 the team was weird, the formation was strange, people were playing out of position, and you know, as a championship club we shouldn't be at a point where we're missing maybe 1 or 2 players and we have to change the entire squad because of it. People have to play out of position because of it. You know, like, yes, he wasn't fantastic, but Baptiste primarily was a right back before he came to us at Middlesbrough. He was a right back. He probably is more physically built now for a centre back with his lack of pace and stuff. But we had Onua used to be a fullback. We had Baptiste used to be a fullback. Robertson can play fullback, and yet we'd end up playing Manning or Cousins and you know, they didn't necessarily do an awful job, but it just made you think, what are we doing? And it 9 times out of 10 it was away. It was away games where we ended up tinkering that much. And our away form was dreadful. Our away form was actually dreadful. Obviously I didn't go to away games. I went to home games. I have a season ticket, I went to the home games. If I could go to more away games and I could afford it, I 100% would have done. But I couldn't this year. Like, financially I just couldn't. But I wasn't that upset by not going, because it just genuinely felt like we didn't have an away identity at all. And again, going into the third point, identity, tactics and identity of the team, of our playstyle, didn't seem to exist. It didn't genuinely feel like we actually had a playstyle, that we had an identity, we had a kind of formula. And as a fan, that it's difficult to know what to expect. You know, going back a few years, back into, again, and I say a few years, I can only kind of go back into what I know, sort of my lifetime as a QPR fan. Going back to when obviously I was quite a bit younger, and we had the likes of Buzaki, we had the likes of Roland, we had, you know, Heide Helgeson. I felt like I could watch the game and know who our target people were, know who we were going to aim for, who we were going to get the ball to. A bit more recently, obviously we had Charlie Austin, Bobby Zamora. We knew the tactic: get it up to Zamora, he'd hold it up, lay it off, Austin would bury it. You know, when we had Tarab, get the ball to Tarab, let him do his bloody well thing, because he'll either get an assist, he'll get a goal, he'll do his thing. You know, we had those teams, we had those times, we had the identity to go, we know what we're going to do, we know who needs the ball, we know where we need to get it to them, and we know what to do. All we have these days is get it to Luke Freeman, see if he can beat a man, him and Luongo do a bit of playing around, and see if we can get it to Matt Smith's head. And the issue is, that wasn't working for a number of reasons at times. Some parts through the season, it was untouchable. We were incredible. Our build-up play was phenomenal. But that's the issue. It was at points, because at other points, we didn't have an identity, we didn't have tactics. I know I fully just absolutely slammed into things there, but I liked Holloway as a manager. I had a lot of respect for him. Like I said, his passion, his commitment really did resonate well with me. He's done so good with youth players, bringing some of these players in, getting us some good signings that people thought were going to be a bit iffy. The likes of Asai Samuel, I think, being the perfect example. People were like, is he going to make it in the Championship though? And actually, I think he's fantastic. I think he deserves more time next season. But enough of Holloway, we're now going to talk about our brand new manager. So, Steve McLaren obviously has been signed up in the last few, I think again, roughly a week or so. I'm losing dates in my head. But again, I've got his managerial history on the screen now. You can see a little bit better, 44.9% average as a manager, like all in all. There's a few teams there where the ratio is a little bit lower. You're looking at like Wolfsburg, you're looking at like Forest, you're looking at Newcastle. But there are some teams there where it's quite high. And the good sign for me there, in my opinion, you look at the likes of Derby County, what Derby County have done in the last couple of seasons, and obviously he was there partway through last year, and he did really, really well there. He did do really, really well there. They stumbled at the final hurdle, but I think he understands the Championship. He knows what he's got to do. He knows what's expected in the Championship. And I think as a manager, it probably is a step forward. Again, nothing against Holloway, but it probably is a step forward. I know a lot of people would maybe question if we got promoted anytime soon. I know it's a long shot. Would Holloway have been the right man for the job? Probably not. That's not me being a dick. Probably not, though. I don't think he would have been the right man to keep us in the Premier League. Whereas Steve McLaren, if we were to go up anytime soon, he was still here, I'd feel a little bit more confident with him at the helm to keep us up there. But we can do what we did for Holloway, look at some pros, look at some cons. Okay, so looking at the cons first this time. One thing with McLaren is, as you would have seen in the previous slide, he was often at clubs for like a season. He was a bit of a one-season man. And at QPR, what we need now is some stability. I know some things have been said recently. He's come out and done some press conferences, and he's talking about, you know, you need to plan to win games in the short term and then look at the long term. That's positive that he's even mentioning the long term. That to me, I know again managers can say a lot and not necessarily mean it, but I think the fact that he's even mentioning long term is definitely a positive. It's definitely a good thing to focus on and to have had him said. So he is a bit of a one-season man, but hopefully that's a con that isn't going to actually affect his term at QPR. Another thing is the financial situation. There was a report released, I think it was 2 days ago. Basically, he doesn't actually know the extent of the financial problem at QPR. And for those of you who might not know, obviously, we had a big £40 million, which I think is actually the biggest of all time, fine for financial fair play from our 2013-14 season, which is when we got promoted into the Premier League. And basically, the fine has now come out. It's been confirmed, despite all of the attempts to minimalise it or make it smaller or to correct it, but it has been confirmed it's a £40 million financial fair play fine. Now he talks obviously a lot about not really understanding it, so it's not great that he's come into the club not fully understanding a financial situation, which obviously a club that's been quite famous for, you know, has all this money, has wealthy owners, but can't buy anyone because we're poor. It's a bit of a roundabout thing, but you know, it is what it is. Two small points of interest for it. He was at the club during that time period of all the signings. The point in time for our club that's got us into the financial fair play problem. He was the assistant coach under Redknapp during that time, so he should have a bit of an idea as to what went on, understand the repercussions of it. So there's a bit of understanding he should have, but I also appreciate that he's not going to understand obviously the recent repercussions of it because he hasn't been here. But it's a bit worrying that he hasn't actually been told the situation. Hopefully that does get sorted. I'm sure it will do. It's not necessarily on him, I guess, but the only reason I'm relaying it to him is that he doesn't understand it yet, which again in the next couple of days you'd assume would get told to him. And I've also put tactics identity here only because it's a con that he now needs to work out the tactics identity, and the only affecting thing on that, normally, you know, any manager's got to come in and bring their tactics identity to the club, but with the financial fair play, it's highly doubtful that he's actually going to get to make too many signings of his own because of the lack of money. So the tactics and identity he's going to have to build are going to be with majority of the same squad. So that's the only reason I put it as a con. Okay, but we will now look at the pros, and you'll see it's actually quite a healthy list of pros. So he's got a good record, and I say good record, it's better than Holloway's record. Obviously he's managed at a bit more variety of club. Obviously he's managed abroad and stuff like that. He's managed England for a short period of time. But his record is better. It's nearer that 50% mark that I was talking about. And like I said with Derby in the two previous terms, his record there has been very, very good, which is a nice positive sign coming to the Championship. He understands the league, like I said. So that itself is going to stand him in good stead, which is always a positive. He's got good club connections, like I said. He's worked with plenty of clubs. A club that actually is, in my opinion, one of the biggest ones for us to have a connection with is FC20, which is over in the Eredivisie in Holland. They have been very, very good in previous years in finding some good little youth gems over in Holland, in places sort of like Morocco, that kind of little region of Europe. They seem to do a really, really good job of bringing some youth players through and finding those youth players. So actually they're a really good club to have your manager have a connection to, because it's, you know, it's kind of like having your foot in the door a little bit, having a manager that's worked there previously. It would be like having an owner of a club, or, you know, that kind of thing, or like some training staff, or like an assistant coach, or whatever, being at your club that can encourage the club or players to come on over, even if it's on loan, that kind of thing. It's a positive, it's a good connection. He's got good connections. Wolfsburg, fantastic connection. They've done really, really well this season in the Bundesliga. And I think, again, it's a good chance to get some players in on loan, get some youth players coming over, that kind of thing. So fantastic connections for him that could stand us in good stead. Much like Holloway with his ability with the youth system, McLaren himself has actually been pretty good with youth players before. When he was obviously in England, in the England job, he focused on bringing some new players through, finding a new direction, and a lot of that was with youth players. And I would definitely say that his ability to build a youth player, to kind of sculpt youth players and make them play their best football is definitely an asset of his, and I think McLaren will definitely do us a good job in bringing some youth players through that we've already got there. I think Ote would quite fit his style, so I think Ote might potentially be a good player to try and sort of ring into it. Hopefully Paul Smith, as a, you know, Bright-Size Samuel, the kind of people I was mentioning before, can carry on under his reign. And I think that he'll benefit those players and hopefully obviously the team. Now the next 2 points kind of like link up and kind of work together, and that is he makes the squad his and he plays good football. He's all about building a nice attacking team, a nice team that's going to play good football. And at QPR, that is something we've always liked. We've always liked a bit of flair. We always like a bit of attack. We like having players that are going to go out and do something, make you want to watch the game, make you want to go, right, give him the ball, go. We've got players that do that. I love watching Nwongo on the ball. I think he's one of technically the best players we have at this club. His ability with his feet, with his strength, with his head, everything. He's such a good player. and I love when he's on the ball, I know something's going to happen. Freeman, same thing. He can beat a man. He tries a little bit too much at times, but he knows he's good. He's got the quality. He knows what he's doing. Eze. Whenever Eze or Smith, Paul Smith, get the ball right aside Samuel, you feel the stadium go, right, go on, do something. And that's because we know they can. And under McLaren, I think with the kind of football he's going to want to play, they're going to get that freedom. They're going to get that back in to go, do your thing, beat a man, do a bit of skill, take the ball up the pitch. And they're going to get that freedom, and I think that's so going to benefit the kind of team we've got, the youth players we've got, what we're trying to build here. So I think those two things are really going to go correlate really, really well, and just be positive for the club. Okay, so I've talked about some sort of old and new in regards to managing, in regards to the actual board, like, you know, the behind the scenes almost, although managers are kind of on the forefront of it. But what I'm going to talk about now is the actual current squad. I'm going to whiz through it quickly, give brief opinions on players, whether I think they should stay, go, what we should kind of do with them. But we're going to go through pretty much everyone in our starting squad. So we're looking at like 30 plus players. So strap in, we're going to power through this. Okay, so on the screen, as you can see, we've got the goalkeepers and we've got the defenders. We'll start off with the goalkeepers. Smithies needs to stay. Fantastic player, one of the best keepers we've had in recent years, definitely. Even I'm including the likes of Julio Cesar, Rob Green, all of these guys. I think Smithies is fantastic. I think he's definitely good enough to be at a Premier League club, but we don't need him to know that. He can stay with us. I love him. He's quality. Ingram, I have a bit of a close-ish connection to him. I went to school with Ingram. He was a year above me, so I've always had a bit of place in my heart for him. Obviously, he went to Wycombe, which is my local team. Kept an eye on him there. When we signed him, I thought fantastic. At times, I find him a little bit lacking in box presence, but I think he's definitely got progress. Same thing with Lumley. I think Lumley's a very good player. Obviously, you know that Holloway had a bit of faith in him. He used him for the last few games this season, gave Smithies a bit of time off. I would do kind of what we've done this year, send one out on loan, keep the other in the club as the second keeper. If we sell one of them, however, then we need to get another keeper in. Again, youth player, looking at our youth system probably is going to be the easiest way, but Smithies got to stay. And then Ingram and Lumley, keep one, loan the other out. On to the defence. As I said to you, Darnell Furlong, fantastic. He's got to stay. We need to keep him. I would personally keep him at right back. I know that Holloway was slowly moving him into the middle of the park a little bit. I think he works best and is most efficient at the right. Definitely keep him. Progression has been insane. Talking of progression, Bidwell, I think, has actually done quite a good job this season. He's really adapted his game. First sort of 10 or so games of the season, I was calling him backwards Bidwell because I don't think the guy actually passed the ball forwards. He fully has grown on me. He's done really, really well. He even scored a couple of times. You know, he's definitely adapted his game. Very committed, very passionate player. I would like to see him stay as well. Grant Hall, if we can keep him fit, keep the guy, definitely. If the fitness is going to be a problem, it might be he's the kind of player we have to let go just to get some money in. But I'd like to keep him if we can keep him fit. That's the overriding thing here. And Newell, obviously, Chief has sadly has left the club, so we won't talk too much about him. Joel Lynch, I think, will actually be a good straight-in replacement for Chief. I think he's a very competent defender. He's an absolute tank. If you look at the guy, it's a brick wall. I wouldn't want to start a fight with him. Absolute machine. And I think actually, if he can get some game time with us, if he can get a bit of a starting team place, he can definitely be looking at trying to get a call up into Wales. So I think Lynch has definitely got the reasons to play, he's got the effort, he's got the strength, and he's a solid looking centre-back. Robinson, right, we need to sort the Robinson situation out. It's just got to be sorted. He either needs to sign and stay, which is what I would prefer, or we've got to sort something out. If he leaves on a free, what a waste. What a waste. I personally think we need to get him on a contract, even if it's a 2-year contract, have him play a boss season, do well for us, and if he can help us finish quite well, he might consider staying. Otherwise, we've then got a year worth of contract to try and get some money for him. But I think we should try and keep him. Baptiste, I think it is time to let him go. He had one game he had for us fairly near the start of the season. One of the best defensive displays I've ever seen from a player in a QPR shirt. And I'm not sort of being over the top or anything. That one game, he was phenomenal. I would not have ever wanted to drop him. Sadly, that didn't happen too often. And I think with his age is catching up with him a little bit in regards to things like pace and stuff. So personally, I think it's time to let Baptiste go. Perch obviously has also left. Kake, I might be saying that wrong, apologies. From the things I saw of him, pretty decent guy. I definitely have him as a bit of rotation. bring in for Bidwell every now and again, or like bring off the bench if we need some fresh legs at the back. We know that Furlong's capable at centre back if worst case scenario, like a centre back needs to come off or something. I think he's a great option. Give the lad some time on the bench. Maybe play him in the odd cup game or something. I think good progression. And Hamalainen, again I'm probably saying that wrong. I think he's from Finland. Haven't seen him play too much. I know he's been out on loan a few times, so I can't comment too much on him. I would say if you're not intending on playing him, maybe another season loan. But again, I think it's the kind of player that's been here for a little while. McLaren will kind of make that decision as to whether he's worth keeping or not. Okay, on to the midfield and to the strikers. Luke Freeman, boss, keep him. Don't want him going anywhere. Absolute one of the first names on the team sheet, and works really well with some of the other partnerships he's worked with. I also think possibly a good shout for captaincy next year. Vocal, have a lot of respect for him. Very passionate, and fairly consistent. I was a few games he'd maybe off the boil a little bit, but 99 times out of 100 gives 110% and is a very consistent player. Jordan Cousins I'd like to keep as well. Very versatile, very utility man, can play pretty much anywhere in the midfield. He can play out wide, he can play defensively, attacking, midfield, whatever. Very, very versatile. I think he's unlucky that the strength of our midfield, otherwise I think he'd definitely have a starting spot, but midfield is probably our strongest place on the pitch, so he's been a little bit unlucky there. Scowen, again I would 100% keep. Very, very good pickup in the end. I think he's done really, really well. I think his passing at times is a little bit lackluster, but I wouldn't be like, sell him, he can't pass, because he can pass, just sometimes it's a bit of a loose pass. But I definitely would keep him. Solid guy. Ryan Manning, one of my favourite players of the club. I love how he plays, I love his build-up, I love his passion, I love his work rate. Fantastic. Much like Cousins, it's quite unlucky that we have such a solid midfield. Otherwise, again, he'd definitely be in every week. But please play him as a midfielder, not as a defender. That has happened a couple of times. Massimo Luongo, my favourite player at the club. Absolute machine, absolute powerhouse. I think he's fantastic. I love to watch him play. I think he is just the epitome of this club. He is great build-up, ability to pass, fantastic ability to read the game, contributes with goals, assists, and just does his job. Sometimes what he does goes a little bit unnoticed, but he's such a good player. Fantastic player. We have to keep him. I don't want him to go. Have to keep him. Jolek, I think much like I was saying about sort of how we would maybe use Kake, about coming off the bench and stuff, fantastic impact, fantastic impact. His stamina, his sort of work rate is phenomenal. Again, a little bit unlucky, there's some players in there that I would maybe put in over him just because I want to see them play, but it would be sad to see him go. If he doesn't want to play a rotation part, then it will be fair enough, let him go. But I personally would like to see him stay. One of the players keeping him out of the team, however, is Bright Isaiah Samuel, in my opinion. Guy needs to stay and he needs to play. He needs some football. He lit the team up like a light when he was playing. It's absolutely fresh, like breath of fresh air. Fantastic to watch him get the ball and just beat players, and his pace is incredible. We have to keep him. Wheeler, personally, I would sell. We brought him in with all this intensive purpose for him to do great stuff for the club, and he played about 4 times. What's the point? He's just going to rot here, and I don't want to see that happen. So unless you have an intention of actually bringing him into the team and making him play a lot, sell him, because you're just wasting his career. Onto the forwards. Connor Washington, I'm gutted that it hasn't worked out, but I don't think it has worked out particularly well for him. I would sell him, let him go to another team, maybe slightly lower down the Championship. I wouldn't necessarily say League One, because I think he's good enough to be in the Championship, but his play style just hasn't worked with us, and he's been unfortunate. I know he's got a lot of stick. I don't think it's all fully deserved. Like I said, I'm quite a fairly positive person about stuff like that though, so maybe I'm being a bit generous, but I have a lot of respect for him. He's fought through a lot of stick from the fans, but I do think it's time to let him go and find form somewhere else, because it just hasn't worked for us. Jamie Mackie obviously has left, gutted, absolute icon, one of my favourite players at the club, but it was time for him to go. Matt Smith, I guess we would have to keep him. He definitely proved me wrong. I wasn't the biggest fan of him coming in. I'm very happy that he's proved me wrong. Big player, big lad, knows what he's doing, knows how to hold himself, and has been crucial for us this season. He's picked us up some big points, got us some big wins, big draws, big goals, full stop. So massive credit to him. I would definitely keep him. I think he's played really well, and has definitely earned his place in my heart anyway. He's definitely proved me wrong, and I'm very happy to admit that. Eze, have to keep him. He's got to play more. He's got to play more. He's got to be in that team. Obviously the issue is, who do you drop? That's the tricky thing, because he's down as a forward. He's more of a cam, really. He's like behind the striker. So the only issue for him is who does he come in for, but I think he's got to play. Chair, keep him. When he's played, he's been phenomenal. His distribution is fantastic. He picks the ball up, he's a little lad, he's got a bit of strength about him, he knows what he's doing. A slightly less cocky Tarab, because he's got the skill, he's got the flair. I love him, keep him. Paul Smith, again, needs to play more. One of my favourite players. I love watching him play. He will light a game up, he will get the ball, gone. Love him, think he's fantastic. I can't say much more about him other than he's fantastic. Ote, again, give him more of a shout. I think he might work under McLaren. I think he's good fit for McLaren's play style with nice football. Obviously a bit of a different option to Matt Smith, so that would be the thing that what I was saying about Matt Smith, depending on the style we're going for next season. But Ote, I think, definitely needs to be in that sort of first team more often. Just Silla, I'm a big fan of his. I know a lot of people give him a lot of stick. I think he's developed massively as a player. I think his work rate is phenomenally better. That was one thing he was always sort of digged at. His work rate wasn't great. He seemed to walk around a lot. His work rate has got a lot better. Some of his decision making at times is a little bit questionable, but I think if he can just compose himself a little bit better at times, not get beaten by too many defenders in regards to like aerial battles and things like that, he's a great option to have as an impact again. He's like a quicker Matt Smith. Maybe not quite as physical, but he's a quicker Matt Smith, and I think it's great versatility for the team. Okay, so the last thing I've got on the screen here, I know I've talked for a very long time, so thank you to anyone who's kind of stuck this out and listened all the way through, is 6 things I think that need to be looked at, addressed, improved, kept on for next season. 6 big factors. Now, I actually talked about this stuff with my dad as well. I was quite interested to see what he would say. And we actually only overlapped on one of these 6 things. Yeah, 6 completely different things. So I also want to know in the comment section the big things to you that you think need to be improved or kept on. So we're going to talk about those now. Let's go straight into them. I know you can see them on the screen, but I'm going to elaborate just a little bit. Away form. We need some. We need some away form. We need to win some games away from home, because we don't. It's as simple as that. And I think a big part of that is because we need to play our own game. What we always seem to do, especially in the last season, was worry about how we had to adapt to the other team instead of going, well, hold on, they can adapt to us. We're going to have our play style. They need to worry about that, not we're going to worry about them, which always seemed to be a thing. So I think we need to go into away games thinking, let's make them stress about playing QPR, not let's be like, oh crap, we're playing Fulham, we're playing Villa, we're playing this, we're playing that. They need to stress about us. That's what we need to try and get back, because I think there was a point, especially in like our big season where we trounced the league and we bossed it because we're amazing. Teams would come up against us and be like, crap, we're playing against QPR. And we, as a fan, I thought, nah, we can take them. Every week, the team can't. We can beat them. Cardiff, yeah, alright. Derby, no, they're good, but we can do it. We can get the points. I don't feel that anymore. I come up against the likes of like a Middlesbrough and think, it's going to be tough, you know. Well, I'll be happy with a draw. I know you can't expect to beat everyone, but it'll be nice to at least, over 50% of the season, think, we're the better team here. And I think away form is a big part of that. So that's my first thing. Second thing, youth. The youth players, the youth system. Keep it up. Keep the youth players. Keep going with it, because the improvement in youth has been phenomenal. The fact that we've got like 4, 5, 6 players in our starting 11 and subs that are like under the age of 21, 22 is fab. I love that. I absolutely love that. It's great progress for the future. It's great going forward. And there's players that we can definitely build the team around, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. The likes of Paul Smith, Bright Asai Samuel, Eze, Furlong. Stick those in the team, build players around them. But I would not be upset with that. I genuinely wouldn't be. If we went, you know what, Furlong's going to play every game, Paul Smith, Eze, Bright, they're going to play every game that they can. I would be like, fab, do it, stick players around them, build the team around that. Don't be afraid to do it. I don't think we've got the luxury of going and buying a £6-7 million striker and going, he's our main guy, we're going to build around him. We can't do that. We don't have the money. We're also going to get fined if we do, again. But I don't see a problem in it. And I think the youth system progress is fantastic. We need to keep it up. Next, I've gone with defence. First thing, Robinson. Is he staying? Is he going? Sort it. Just get it done. Just get it done, dead, buried, decisive. Yes, he's staying. No, he's going. At the point of me recording this, that still hasn't happened. We still don't actually have an answer or really any idea what's going on. We've had McLaren come out and say, well, he had a week. tomorrow's his last day, if he hasn't decided then, whatever. We haven't actually then heard the result of that. As a fan of the club of Robinson, I want to see him stay, and I just want to know, because I'd much rather they go, look, he's not staying, we're going to find a replacement. I'd feel way better about that. So, personally, that just needs to get sorted. We need to strengthen the defence as well, in my opinion. I think it's the one position on the pitch we're a little bit weak in, especially if Robinson goes. It's the one position on the pitch that we are maybe a little bit culpable for. I think the midfield is incredible. I think the forwards, we've definitely got options. I think Ote is a great option. You'd maybe argue we didn't get as many goals as we would have liked to, but I think it's because, like I said, we didn't have an identity. We didn't have a set tactic. And I think that will definitely improve us going forward. But defensively, we need to strengthen a little bit. And of course, we need to replace the Anua figure. I think we need to find someone that's going to come in, or who is already here, and step up and be the new chief, be the new boss at the back. I think Lynch has definitely got the potential. I also think Robinson has definitely got the potential. But it's dependent on who stays, who goes, what happens, all of that stuff, as I'm sure you're aware. The next one you see I've put fans. Now this isn't a dig at fans at all. I don't think I'm going to dig at fans at all. I think our away fans are fantastic. I don't go to the away games, I wish I could, but you always hear that we have a very good away turnout. I think that's fantastic. I think we've got a great fan base at the club. A lot of family, you know, it's quite a family club. There's a lot of families that go. Obviously I go with my dad. I sit next to the QPR Norwegian fan club at the stadium. My season ticket is next to their season ticket. So, you know, we have a great following. I think the communication with the fans, you know, you have those like little press conferences stuff. I know Les Ferdinand does like little forums and things as well with fans. I think that's great. Keep it up, 100%. 100% keep it up. I do think, however, there needs to be a bit more of a chance for fans to feedback openly in like a more consistent basis. I'm not suggesting it at all. I think it would be a bit forced and a bit dire if something like this happened. But something like an Arsenal Fan TV, but not as like we're going to shout at a camera and get really pissed off fans to just shout at Arsene Wenger, or it won't be Arsene Wenger, will it? Shout at Steve McLaren or shout at players. Not that kind of feedback, but a place where opinions can be put across. Whether it be like a QPR YouTube channel, whether it be a QPR podcast, you know, those kind of things. I think that would be just a nice, again, just another little bit of positivity, another bit of something for fans to reach out to and to kind of comment on and kind of show feedback to. Whether it be positive or negative, you'd hope that most of it would be fairly positive feedback and you know, approachable stuff. So I think that'd be a nice little addition. Something we touched on before, starting 11. We need a consistent starting 11. We need to know who's our main team, the players that are going to like rotate in every now and again. But who is our consistent? Right, you're in goal, your defence, your midfield, you're up front. That needs to happen. McLaren needs to make that one of his priorities. It's important. It really is important. It needs to happen. I can't say much more than that. But also the players need to know where they're playing. Too many times players are playing out of position. You know, we have a great team. We have some fantastic players, some great individuals. Let them play in their actual positions they're meant to play. That's all I can say on that. That's my opinion. Lastly, captain. As you can see, I pick one. Just pick a captain. We need a captain. The people I would consider, Luke Freeman, very vocal. You can't see that he's not going to play that often. I think he, again, fits quite nicely into McLaren's play style. So I definitely would consider him. Robinson, if he stays, it might even be a thing to help convince him to stay. Give him the captaincy, give him the armband, give him something again to be positive about. Quite vocal, solid defender, knows what he's doing, leads by example. Good shout. I put Mass down, again, one of my favourite players, a little bit biased maybe. I don't know whether he's a full-on captain figure. I'd probably pick Freeman as a captain over him, but I've given him as an option because he's a quality player. And I think Joel Lynch actually might be a decent shout. Again, big lad, you know, vocal, lead by example. I think that'll be a great progress for him too. So just a thought, not a definite, just a thought. But I'm going to round the video off there. Thank you so much to anyone who's decided to watch this all the way through. I filmed this for about an hour and a half. The video is not going to be that long. I really hope it's not going to be that long. No one will watch it. But if you have watched this, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for sticking around. The main thing here, I want this to be a chance for people to talk. Preferably QPR fans, obviously. To talk. Share your opinions. Share your thoughts. I will talk to anyone and everyone in the chat. I want you to tell me if you agree with what I say, if you don't quite agree with what I say, if you like bits and you're like, well actually I'd do it a little bit like this, talk. This is a perfect example, a perfect chance for people to actually just go, you know what, let's talk about it. If you support QPR, this is our club. We're allowed to have a say, we're allowed to have an input, we're allowed to kind of have an opinion about where we think our club should go. And this is mine, this is my opinion. So please also bear that in mind. It's just an opinion. Everyone's opinion is different. Like I said, I talked to my dad and he had completely different opinions to me. It's part of supporting something that thousands of other people support. Not everyone's going to agree. But I would like to say thank you so much for enjoying this. Like I said, comment section is open for debate. That's the entire point of this. But I'm going to say thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to see something again like this, then let me know. If you want my opinions on another club, let me know. I'll happily talk about anyone and everyone. But obviously I know quite a bit about QPR. I'd like to think I know quite a bit about QPR from supporting them. But that's all from me, boys. Thank you so much. And I hope to see a lot of you again very, very soon. Look after yourselves. See you later.